Imagine a ship drifting in the middle of a boundless ocean, a wooden coffin filled with living dead. On the deck and in the hold lie men who are no longer brave sailors. Their gums are swollen, rotting flesh barely clinging to loose teeth. Teeth that can be pulled out with fingers, without any pain, like rotten pegs from damp earth. Their skin is covered in dark, almost black spots, and old, long-healed scars suddenly reopen and bleed. Their legs swell so much that their boots must be cut open. This is scurvy, a disease that, in the 18th century, killed more sailors than all the cannons and cutlasses of enemy fleets combined. And amidst this hell, in 1747, a young Scottish surgeon walks aboard His Majesty's ship Salisbury. He looks at these barely living bodies, hears their quiet moans, and understands. No one knows what this is. No one knows how to cure it. Around him, there is only despair and old, useless remedies. And these remedies were more terrifying than the disease itself. Doctors of that era were like blind kittens fumbling in the dark. What to do with rotting flesh? Of course, bleed them. A weakened, barely living person would have a vein opened, releasing precious remnants of life into a copper basin. Didn't help? Then the stomach needed to be cleansed. Salty seawater was poured down the unfortunate's throat until they vomited inside out. Or even better, they were given elixir of vitriol, diluted sulfuric acid that burned everything inside. Every ship was a floating laboratory of insane ideas, and each new idea was more murderous than the last. They tried everything: mercury, vinegar, infusions of pine needles. But the sailors continued to die. 18th century medicine was like a wild, panicked dance in the dark, where no one knew the steps or the music. And this surgeon's name was James Lind. He wasn't a gray-haired professor from Edinburgh whose hands had never touched rotting flesh. He was a simple ship's surgeon who every day felt swollen gums with his own hands and watched young men waste away in a matter of weeks. And this dance of death became his personal torment. He saw the captain strike names from the ship's log, one after another. He saw bodies wrapped in canvas thrown overboard. Lind looked at the vials of sulfuric acid and the lancets for bloodletting, and a simple yet audacious thought formed in his mind. They were all wrong. This chaos had to stop. What was needed wasn't a new elixir, but order. On May 20th, 1747, when another dozen sailors collapsed, he decided that the time for guesswork was over. It was time to act. He took 12 unfortunate men, whom scurvy had already stripped of their last strength. 12 almost identical shadows, with equally rotting gums and the same hopelessness in their eyes. He housed them in one place, on the ship's forecastle, so they all had the same air, the same food, and he divided them into 6 pairs. To the first pair, he gave a quart of cider every day. To the second, 25 drops of that very elixir of vitriol. To the third, 2 spoonfuls of vinegar. The fourth drank salty seawater. The fifth received a spicy paste of garlic and mustard. But the last pair, the 6th, received what seemed like a ridiculous luxury in the middle of the ocean: 2 oranges and 1 lemon a day. 6 days passed. 10 sailors continued to moan and fade, but the 2 who ate citrus were already sitting up in their bunks. Their gums had stopped bleeding. One of them was already strong enough to help the other sick men. The experiment had to be stopped. The oranges and lemons on the ship ran out. But the answer had been found. Among the 10 dying, 2 were returning to life. And this is where his main trick lies. The secret wasn't in the oranges, or more precisely, not only in them. Lind's true magic lay in how he asked the question. Before him, all doctors were like people searching for a black cat in a dark room. They overturned furniture, broke dishes, prayed, and drank mercury, all at the same time. If someone got better, no one could say exactly why. Perhaps from prayer, or perhaps from vinegar. Lind understood. To find the answer, one must first silence everyone. He did a simple thing. He took 12 men and made their lives identical. The same food, the same air, the same bunks. He removed all the chaos, all that noise of shouts, moans, and foolish remedies. And only then, in the silence he created, did he begin to change just one single thing for each pair. His genius wasn't in finding a needle in a haystack. His genius was in burning the haystack and leaving only the needle in the ashes. He brought this needle to London, straight to the College of Surgeons, to important gentlemen in powdered wigs. He laid out his notes before them, told them about the 12 sailors and the 2 oranges. Here, he said, here is the cure, simple as day. But the professors from Edinburgh and the officials from the Admiralty merely scoffed. Some ship's bone setter, who hadn't even attended university, was going to tell them how to cure diseases? They had spent years writing thick books about the balance of acids in the body, about harmful vapors, and the benefits of mercury. And here, a lemon. It wasn't just foolish. It was insulting. They brushed him off like an annoying fly. They had their theories, their reputations, and their comfortable positions, and they weren't about to trade all that for a fairy tale about citrus from some upstart. Lind left them. He understood. Talking to those Whigs was like shouting into a pillow. And so he sat down at a table. He decided to forge his notes not into a plea, but into a hammer. He took up his pen and began to write. Not a pamphlet, not an angry letter. He began to write a book. For 6 years he labored over it, sifting through his ship's diaries, recalling the faces of those 12 sailors. Across 400 pages, he laid everything out systematically. This is how gums rot. This is how legs swell. Here is a list of useless remedies, from vitriol to prayer. And here, gentlemen, are 12 sailors. Here are 6 days, and here are 2 oranges and 1 lemon. He didn't ask them to believe. He laid out facts, so stubborn and obvious that they could be touched. In 1753, a treatise of the scurvy was published. He locked his discovery in a book, like a genie in a bottle, and sent that bottle sailing on the sea of time. And that bottle floated for a long time, a very long time, 10 years, 20, 40. A treatise of the scurvy sat on shelves in Admiralty offices. It was read, it was even praised, but no one did anything. Meanwhile, the British fleet continued to lose men. Ships would sail with a crew of 100, only to return with 50. The rest rotted in their bunks or lay at the bottom of the ocean, wrapped in canvas. Ship's doctors, leafing through Lind's book, still continued to bleed patients and prescribe sulfuric acid in the old way. More than 40 years passed. During these years, scurvy claimed the lives of 100,000 British sailors. 100,000. That's the population of an entire city. A city that could have been saved simply by loading crates of lemons into the holds. The answer lay on a shelf, covered in dust, while an entire generation of sailors went to their graves. But time erodes even Admiralty stones. The old Whigs retired, and other people took their place. People who fought Napoleon and lost ships not to cannonballs, but to this quiet decay. And one of them, a ship's doctor just like Lind himself, one day took that old dusty treatise from the shelf. He didn't laugh. He simply read. And in 1795, a year after Lind's own death, an order was issued, simple as a gunshot. Every one of His Majesty's ships was to load lemon juice, and scurvy disappeared. It simply evaporated, like a nightmare at dawn. The British fleet, which for decades had been a floating hospital, suddenly became the healthiest and strongest in the world. And this is his true discovery, his secret weapon. Lind gave the world not a lemon. He gave the world an idea. The idea that to find the truth, you don't need to shout the loudest. You just need to silence everyone and change only one thing.